The Edmonton Oilers fell 3-2 to the Washington Capitals Tuesday night in a very close game where the box score was a little misleading in the first game of Connor McDavid's 3-game suspension, all on today's edition of Locked On Oilers.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Wednesday edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. I want to thank everyone who's making Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, a tough loss to the Capitals, who, to be fair, are a very good team. We'll get into that. We'll hit on the goal scorers. We'll break it down a little bit defensively. We'll talk about why the Oilers had such a hard time creating quality offense tonight. And we'll wrap talking about the McDavid suspension, which 3 games more than I had forecasted. We'll talk a little bit about looking ahead to a game against the Canucks on Thursday without McDavid. It'll be the second of his 3 games. But at the outset, this is one of those games where you get an understanding of where you're at as a hockey team. Because for the most part this year, the Oilers have played pretty good hockey. They have a really good record. They had a chance tonight, if they had won, to move into first place solely in the Pacific Division for the first time in 5 years. They had mentioned that on the Sportsnet broadcast. And the Capitals, to their credit, really stymied Edmonton. And lest we forget, Edmonton was without the best player in the world tonight. And I'm not going to make excuses for the Oilers. They have to deal with what McDavid did. I went on a long, winding tangent the other day saying, and I'll repeat it now just in case you didn't hear me say it, Connor McDavid should not have done what he did. He should not have gotten up and cross-checked Connor Garland in the face. That said, I understand why he did it, and I don't particularly blame him for doing it. You know, I don't condone it. I don't think it was a good thing to do, but I understand. I understand boiling over to a breaking point. We all have those days, and sometimes, you know, your workplace is a little more conducive to violence, like in the NHL, than those of us who are in an office or working from home most days. But this was an example of the Oilers' limitations, and the Oilers, as a rush-based skill team, are very reliant on their transition play to facilitate offense. And you saw in this game the Capitals do a masterful job of defanging the Oilers' offense. It was almost impassable to get through the neutral zone. It was almost outright impossible to generate anything resembling a quality scoring chance in the offensive zone in this game. The Leon goal is a nice redirection play. It's a really good way of getting a quality player a good puck touch in a dangerous area when you run something that quickly off of a faceoff. And the Corey Perry goal, that's just a wicked rocket. That is not a shot that's typically going to go in most of the time because it's from far away, because it's in transition. But every now and then, Ung still got it. You know, if you're familiar with the video of that guy jumping rope sitting on his butt for some reason, that old dude, Ung still had it. That was vintage Corey Perry. That was an absolute wicked rocket. It gave them a chance to get in this game. And I don't want to come away from that game feeling too doomerist. I know at times I can overreact to one game because they feel important. And this was a measuring stick game. The Capitals have the best record in the entire NHL right now. They have consistently, through their depth, which their fourth line was really good tonight, and really gave the Oilers defense a hard time in their own zone. And they've got a really nice mobile defense. The Chychrun and Matt Roy additions have worked wonders for them. They still have John Carlson. The Rasmus Sandin edition from a couple years ago at the trade deadline when they were going to miss the playoffs has worked out really well for them. They are a really well-rounded hockey team, and they don't have a ton of high-end talent, but Their goaltending this year has been outstanding. Logan Thompson was great tonight. I really do think the Oilers had a reasonable chance to tie this game. The Kapanen odd man rush chance lingers in my mind. I thought he beat Thompson clean. I thought Thompson entirely missed that puck, but he did a great job of getting his glove out. And Thompson's an opposite goalie where he catches with the hand opposite most goalies do. So I know that's definitely a wrinkle for shooters to think about. But I thought Kapanen had him beat. I thought for the most part, there are levels to this type of game because people are going to look at the box score and say, well, the Oilers had a ton of possession. The Capitals scored on a lot fewer chances. The Capitals scored early in this game. The Oilers had to catch up. The Oilers had a ton of possession because they were playing catch up. But I want to give the Capitals credit, especially in that third period. The Capitals did a great job of just making the Oilers work. And there are layers to that. So to start, the Oilers, when they're at their best, it's up and down, back and forth transition. It's using McDavid, it's using Leon, it's using Connor Brown and Janmark lower in the lineup. It's about using their speed through the neutral zone to get the puck deeper into the offensive zone and put pressure on the other team's defense. Without McDavid, they didn't have one of their key cogs in their offense. McDavid is a one-man zone entry. If he's carrying the puck through the neutral zone with speed, he is almost guaranteed going to gain the offensive zone, maintain possession of the puck long enough for his line mates to enter the zone with him, and the Oilers are set up. Tonight, though, the Oilers had a lot harder time getting through the neutral zone because, A, they had to do a lot more work. When you're used to one guy being your facilitator because he's the best player in the world, you're not going to ask your tertiary supporting players to do that when McDavid's out there. And yeah, they had to juggle the lineup around. You saw guys like Jeff Skinner come back into the lineup and Kasperi Kapanen come back into the lineup. But they really had a hard time gaining the zone with speed, getting pucks deep with possession, because as we always talk about, it is not disqualifying or a bad idea on a 50-50 play to get that puck in deep and just go get it. Sometimes you're going to have to take what the defense is giving you, and that means we're going to dump the puck in, we're going to go straight as fast as we can to get it, and we're going to try and put pressure on them that way. Of course, the caveat to that is you just did all the work in your defensive zone to gain possession. You skated it through the neutral zone, across the red line, and you did all of that work, and you're going to dump the puck in. Then you have to go and get it. It is significantly more tiring and significantly more grueling to play this way. And you saw the Oilers as this game went along, and the Capitals really did a good job of this. You saw the Oilers' big boys. You saw Draisaitl, you saw Hyman, you saw them trying to get the gears going. But it was a real slog for them at points. And I know the shot totals, the scoring chance totals are very favorable, but the volume of offense was significantly less dangerous than what the box score would tell you. They did not do a great job of getting pucks in tight on Logan Thompson and making him play goalie. They had looks. They definitely had chances to tie this game outright. You could even make an argument they had chances to win this game outright, but not every night is going to be your night in the NHL. Sometimes the puck's just not going to go in. The other team is allowed to play defense. They're allowed to play goalie. And the Capitals did a really good job of making the Oilers do things that they're not good at. The Oilers are not a dump and chase cycle team. But down the stretch in this game, when they were chasing the game-tying goal, the Oilers had to pass the puck 5 or 6 times around the offensive zone just to generate one scoring chance. That's a really inefficient way to play hockey, especially when it's not what you're good at. If you have to string together several passes in a row just to generate a scoring chance, and not a particularly dangerous one at that, it's really hard to do because you're just increasing the variance. If you need to make 7 passes to get one chance and you need to make 14 to get 2, that's a lot of effort. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of work. And it's just really hard to sustain that for a full period when you're chasing the game. We're going to take our first break at today's show. We'll get on into a little bit why I think Stuart Skinner probably wants at least one of those goals back he conceded tonight, and a whole lot more in today's edition of LockOn Oilers, so be sure to stick around. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer you one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agent tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million, no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance policy for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Oilers as we're breaking down the Oilers' 3-2 loss to the Washington Capitals on Tuesday night. And analyzing this game through the lens of no McDavid and how you adapt to that, that's really one of the questions that I really like to think about conceptually when you're talking about individual games in the context of a greater season. Because a lot of these games, they get lost to the void. And most of the time, the recollections you're going to have from a given game are tied to the extreme good and the extreme bad. You're not going to remember a dump in from Kasperi Kapanen from 110 feet away that the Capitals recover, they turn, they go back the other way in transition and gain an offensive zone play. You know, you're going to remember the goals for, you're going to remember the goals against, you're going to remember the near misses. You know, the Oilers had chances there down the stretch when they had the 6-on-4 at the end of the game with the empty net. They worked really hard to get 2 or 3 good looks during that minute and a half or so, and they had a chance. And when you are a shorthanded team and you are trying to scrounge, and when you're in a desperate situation, for lack of a better word, obviously it's just a hockey game, it's not life or death, but when you're desperate, when you're really pressing, it is hard for me to get too riled up about this loss. And if you were to point a finger, you would say you probably need a little bit more from your depth guys because McDavid's out. But again, remember, the Oilers are built around one premise. It starts with 29-97, and we build out from there. That's special teams, that's even strength, and then we start talking about the defense. The Adam Henriques, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Jeff Skinners, Vasily Podkolzins, Victor Arvidssons. And then we talk about Stuart Skinner. You know, there are so many levels to this as to how the Oilers are successful. And look, when you take McDavid out of the Oilers lineup, you are talking about a significant contributor. And I know that sounds obvious here, but think about it. This season, McDavid has 45 points in 43 games. He's missed 3 games this year. He had the injuries, and then tonight would be the 4th game he's missed this year, the first game of his suspension. The Oilers on the season have generated 151 goals. McDavid has contributed on 65 of those. So I'm going to pull up my calculator right here and do the math just because I'm curious. So 65 points, and the Oilers have scored 151 goals. So 65 divided by 151. McDavid has contributed on 43% of the Oilers' points this season. Once you get past Connor, Leon, Bush, there is a significant drop-off in the counting stats here. Bouchard has 35 points. That's 34 fewer than Leon. That's 30 fewer than Connor. After that, Nuge has 27. Hyman has 26. Connor Brown has 19. Darnell Nurse has 19. Without McDavid, you are talking about 40% of your offense gone. And and look, yes, that's special. That's power play. That's 5-on-5. That's a big chunk. That would be like the Eagles going into the NFC title game and no Saquon. He gets a significant volume of their touches. He is an integral part of how they play, and adapting that to how you're going to figure it out, it changes everything for you if you're the Oilers, because no McDavid. Okay, so Nugent-Hopkins is going to need to play center, which he hasn't done a lot this year. We're going to bring Jeff Skinner and Kasperi Kapanen back into the lineup. Noah Phillip is still up with the big club because Derek Ryan went down to Bakersfield, and we are going to try and piece this together. And when you have that piecemeal lineup and you need to try and figure it out, there's going to need to be a little bit more from that depth. And today, this is the type of game you really needed Stuart Skinner to be great. He was fine. I don't want to get too hung up on how Skinner played in this game, because I don't feel like arguing he should have had it, he shouldn't have had it. It ultimately comes down to like balls and strikes arguing with an umpire. Sure, you could say he probably should have the Matt Roy goal, but he's heavily screened. What the counterpoint to that would be, well, he needs to be in a better position to make that read. He doesn't start moving until the puck's already been shot. He's not in a good position to make that play. I know on the broadcast, Jack Michaels had mentioned that Skinner got down kind of slow a couple times during the second period of the game, that he was reacting late, he was reading late. The Capitals did a great job in this game of making the Oilers uncomfortable. You think about the goals they conceded. The PLD goal is entirely a flub in transition. The Oilers have three players around Pierre-Luc Dubois as Dubois is entering the offensive zone. All three of them miss the puck. Dubois saucers a puck over Kulak. And look, Kulak does everything he can. I'm going to move the microphone so I don't hit it here, but the puck is over here in front of Kulak to his right. Dubois flips it over to his left on the opposite side. The problem is Kulak was over here with his stick, and he has to go all the way back over here, and he's entirely off balance. He can't react. He can't put himself in a position to make the play. The puck gets entirely behind him. Eller gets deeper than the goal line. He is behind the goal line. The puck hits one post and goes behind Skinner across the net mouth, and Dubois just taps it in. And the problem there is the defense reacted like the Eller shot had gone in and didn't try and follow up on the rebound. That one's a little bit frustrating. You go a little bit further, the Tom Wilson goal, Darnell Nurse can't be making that pinch. He tries to join the rush to make it a 3-on-2. Draisaitl leaves a drop pass for Arvidsson. And look, brief aside, I hate drop passes so much. They are one of the most infuriating plays to watch, because the player behind you are not sure they are expecting that. And in this case, it directly leads to a goal against, because Draisaitl overskated the puck. Then the Capitals get to go back the other way, 3-on-1. And Kulak, again, he tries to make the right play. He goes Snow Angel, and Skinner gets beat that way. And then real quick on the last one, the Tom Wilson goal was, the Tom Wilson goal was the 3-on-2. And then the Matt Roy one was the heavy screen. These are not insane goals against. You could make an argument he probably should have at least one of those, but he didn't. And we know Stuart Skinner can't be the difference between winning and losing if the Oilers are going to win a lot of hockey games, because he's not that caliber of player. He's fine. I don't think he's a detriment to the team, but he's not somebody who can be the difference between winning and losing on a consistent basis on a good team. If he's the starter on a fringe playoff team, I think people would have a very different opinion of their expectations of him. But because he's on the Oilers, because he's on a good team, there's a perception that he's the one that's letting them down, when the Oilers don't expect that much from him. So we're going to take one more break on today's show. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit to adapting without McDavid. We'll talk a little bit about the suspension, a whole lot more on this edition of LockOn Oilers. So be sure to stick around. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. It's $300 to keep the action going. FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and a variety of bets keep every game exciting. You know the deal, folks. Biggest weekend of the year in the NFL, for me at least. The Championship Sunday is my favorite. I like Championship Sunday more than the Super Bowl because it's 2 games and it's really high-level football. This weekend, I-95 showdown. The Washington Commanders going up to Philly to take on Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Commanders and the Eagles, they split the regular season series. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites at the link. And then Sunday night, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Haley Steinfeld, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, Dalton Kincaid. Whatever. You know the deal. Chiefs, Bills, biggest game of the year. The Chiefs, 1.5-point favorites at Arrowhead, and what is an epic showdown for the 4th time these teams meet in the playoffs. The Bills have lost all 3 previous playoff series games in the series between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Wednesday edition of LockOn Oilers. And Connor McSuspended is quite the narrative. And look, anytime a superstar player is in the center of conversation for something other than their on-ice performance, you know that news cycle is going to take on a life of its own. We all understand how news media cycles in the sports world work. We know that conversations and the lines of conversations stem from certain points of delineation. You know, there are newsmakers, the people like Elliot Friedman, Jeff Merrick, Pierre LeBrun, Darren Draker, the news people who drop tidbits, who drop scoops. Then you have team reporters who are employees of the team or work for media affiliated with the team who are going to give you their perspective with a little bit of flavor on it. And I understand we have reached a tipping point in discourse, both in person, online, in sports, in all aspects of life, basically, where everything is a morality test. Everything is I know everything and you know nothing. And we've kind of reached a breaking point where I can understand where most people are coming from. And I, for one, I feel like I'm an alien sometimes, that I can take a step back and watch people argue and say, I can see both sides of this argument. In this case, McDavid getting suspended, it's very straightforward. Connor Garland is 100% interfering with McDavid. 100%. But we're letting the boys play because we don't want the officials to decide the game, because the officials are there to manage the game, not call the game. You've heard me use that phraseology before, but referees don't want to be seen or perceived as the ones deciding the game. They don't want to call penalties in that situation because they want to let the guys on the ice settle it. I have no problem with that, but that needs to be the standard throughout the game then. It can't be, well, the Canucks have the lead, we can't call a penalty on them, or the Oilers are really pushing here, we got to bring the temperature of this game down. And instead of protecting the players, which is the most important role a referee has, is to keep the game from getting off the rails, because yes, these are professional athletes and there is some semblance of decorum and respect for each other. But if you let them, they will kill each other and they won't really think about it. And McDavid knows he can't react that way. It's unfortunate. He shouldn't have done it, but the NHL is justified in suspending him for a forcible hit to the head. He had already been suspended once earlier in his career for a game. I thought he would have gotten 2 games. 3 games does feel like a little much, that they're trying to make an example out of him. But at the same time, you got to take a step back. You got to try and take a deep breath and say, it sucks. It's kind of unfair that he only did that because he was fouled and it was uncalled to begin with, because it's the Wes McCauley show. As we all know, we choose to watch the NHL for Wes McCauley and not Connor McDavid. But alas, life without McDavid is very difficult. This is the best puck carrier in the entire sport. There is no one in the world better at gaining the zone with puck possession and maintaining possession than Connor McDavid. No team is going to be able to replicate that. There is no money ball that's recreated in the aggregate. That is arguably the most valuable skill set in the entire sport, is being a strong transition puck carrier, because you are a one-man offense. It's the equivalent, and I'll make the Gisele Bundchen joke, but she said when the Patriots lost to the Eagles in the Super Bowl, do you expect Tom to throw and catch the ball at the same time? And that's effectively what the one-man zone entry that Connor McDavid is. He creates offense by himself. He doesn't need to pass it. He doesn't need to dump it in. He will simply skate where he wants to go with the puck. He's the best skater in the world, and he can get there. Without that in your toolbox, the Oilers are going to need to scale back. And you saw that tonight. You saw significantly more dump and chase from them than you would see. You saw Ty Emberson and Darnell Nurse pinching a lot in this game to try and be an extra body in the offensive zone to create more of a 4-on-5 feel as opposed to the 3-on-5 feel. And that's where you can run into trouble, is if you are trying to be overly conservative defensively because you know you don't have as much offense as you usually do. It can create the effect of effectively playing 3-on-5, where your three forwards are trying to make plays happen against five defenders because all five of the guys on the other team are going to be actively defending. It's an unfortunate situation for everybody. I hate that we have to do narrative talk. We have to do discourse instead of talking about this through the lens of hockey, because this is a hockey podcast, and hockey podcasts, we like to talk about hockey. We like to talk about players, the puck going in the net, or goalies preventing the puck from going in the net. And instead, we're talking about the role of Department of Player Safety, the role of officials, the role of teams, and the management of narratives. Like, did the Oilers need to release a statement? No. Do I get why they did it? Yeah, of course. He's their most important player. He's their captain. He's the face of the league. Of course you issue that very cookie cutter paragraph to say they're disappointed and they're going to support their player. And anybody who's taking the time to dunk on that, or to dunk on McDavid, or defame him on the internet because they don't like him, you're missing the point here. I understand the internet is a void. It's a black hole, and you're always going to find people who have something bad to say about something. I'm not particularly hung up on it. McDavid will be back by next week. The Oilers will move on. It sucks they don't have him for 3 games, but this is not some groundbreaking story that's going to fundamentally alter the league. I think there is a conversation to be had about officiating in terms of managing the game and how the league itself treats its star players. But that's a different conversation. As far as McDavid, I'm not saying I agree with what he did. I'm not saying I condone it. I understand it. We've all had those days. We have all had those days where it's just been too much and you snap. You reach that breaking point. For some of us, that you go take a walk, you go take a couple deep breaths, you go stand outside, you get away from the person who's annoying you. In the hockey world, you respond with violence. And if he cross-checks Connor Garland in the chest as opposed to the head, he probably doesn't even get suspended. He probably gets 2 minutes with 5 seconds to go. They go back to the room, and that's it. But Connor Garland is very short. Connor Garland is a pest, and he did his job. He made McDavid uncomfortable, and now we all got to deal with it. But that'll do it for today's edition of LockOn Oilers. If you could be so kind, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you happen to be listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave the show a 5-star review. If you're watching over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the alarm bell, get a notification whenever new content goes live. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Not sure what we're going to talk about yet. I have a few ideas rattling around in my head. We'll get there. I promise. I will see you guys then. Until then, let's go Oilers.